You know when you've got a reverb and you don't want it to be like canyon style, but then you don't want it to be too in your face, because something too small can just sound like a bad recording, and something too far away can just sound like you're trying to cover up a bad recording. Well, this reverb just sounds real. It just sounds like you're in a really great sounding recording room. And to me, that's what a chamber should sound like. So this is the new Blackbird chamber from Kit Plugins. And to me, it's just like a really natural sounding room that doesn't really sound like that many other reverbs that I've heard or that I've used. And it does one thing, and it does that one thing very well, with a few little added extra flavors that we've kind of expected from the Kit Plugin stuff. So let's just take a listen to it on some drums first of all, and just hear the realism that it's adding. So this is kind of a fast punky rock track, and I'm just going to blend in this reverb, just going to start bringing it up, and you're going to hear it. Let's hear it in the mix. All right, so it's not a reverb like a massive, long, sprawling reverb. It's not like one of those plates that seems to just be a little bit shimmery. It's a chamber. It's replicating an authentic space. So let's just have a little look at it and see what it's doing, how it's doing it, and then discuss the sound. So essentially, it's a room. It's a room from Blackbird, the famous Blackbird studio, Studio A. Now we can do some interesting things here. First of all, we can use a couple of different sets of microphones. So 3 different microphones. If I just bring this down, then you're going to see that represented over here. So this is the C24, the AKG stereo mic, the R88, so something ribbony, and then 414, so don't know if it's old, don't know if it's new, whatever, but they're a pair of 414s. Now, I don't want to worry too much about this bit at the bottom for the moment. We're going to, because it's cool. But let's just get to the very essence of the reverb to start off with. We've got the height position, so we can set it so they're super up the top. If you have a look over here, they're really, really high up top, and then you can bring them all the way down as well, but still kind of hanging from the ceiling. Or you can bring them so they're positioned on the floor and they're really low down, or then you can bring them up so they're more towards the ceiling there. So you have like a massive height variation there, and this is very important when you're thinking about drums. You know, a lot of famous drum rooms have that kind of double height ceiling that we're familiar with, and it just gives you that length, that broadness, that decay. Let's take a listen to a couple of the different kind of configurations that we've got here. Maybe we'll just put it on the snare just for now, just so we can hear. So let's go for the snare. Let's listen to the trigger, just so we've got something that's kind of control. So let's start off with the 414s on the ceiling in the highest position, and then we'll just bring them down. Just seems to last a little bit longer when it's up high. Then right down the bottom. Yeah, it's just a little bit more immediate. So let's bring up this reverb and just get a bit more out of it, just so we can really hear the differences between the mics. And let's put it in its middle position, so it's not too high, not too low. And we'll switch between the mics so we can just hear what's going on. So let's hear the different mics, starting with the 414s. Okay, it's the C24 and the R88. They seem to have a little more kind of top end to them. And I think as we bring that up to even the highest position, we're probably going to get even more kind of air to that. Let's take a listen. Yeah, so the 414 is just a little more mid-rangey. Let's take them down to the floor and see what it's like. Let's bring them all the way down. Much more intimate. Yeah, you can really hear that kind of slap back off the walls there when it's in the floor position. Okay, so to my mind, I've kind of got two different settings there with a tone control. So I'm either going to be going floor and all the way lowest, or I'm going to be going ceiling and all the way highest. And as I move down, so the C24 is going to have maybe the most brightness. And then as I move down, I'm getting a little less brightness and a bit more kind of mid-rangeness to it. That's a word now. If I go to the source, now this is interesting because at the moment, we can see the mics, we can see an empty room. If I go to hi-fi, boom, a speaker appears. And this is essentially reamping the drums, in this case, into the room. And then we've also got PA, so we can reamp it through a different kind of speaker. Let's just switch between these and see what we like. So I really liked that on the ceiling position in the C24. It's not the most natural sounding one, but for the purposes of this, it's kind of the coolest sounding one. And let's go from direct to hi-fi to PA. That's interesting. Okay, so direct and then hi-fi. Let's do PA as well, just so we can hear it. So direct has got this real low end and high end boost. Well, not really a boost, kind of a natural thing, but it's got some real nice highs and lows. And then as you move down through hi-fi into PA, the PA is like really mid heavy. So although I'm soloing the snare, I've actually got a little bit of this kick still going into the bus, and you can really hear that on the direct, but not necessarily on the PA. So PA is far more mid-heavy, and it feels a little more brash, a little more thrashy. Direct is the kind of the purest, as if you had the kit in the room, and it's got the tops and the lows. So pre-delay, not to go too much into that, you know what pre-delay is, but let's hear it. Yeah, just adding a little bit of space there, just making sure that the transients aren't getting kind of blurred by the reverb. The really interesting stuff is, so kit plugins are kind of known for saturation-y console plugins, I guess, for the most part. And that's what I love about this, because they've included that in the plugin. So you don't have to go and bring up another plugin like an EQ or a saturation or whatever to actually manipulate this, because you've got loads of stuff down the bottom. So you've got saturation, high and low pass, you've got an EQ, and then you've got a compressor, and you've also got a ducker. So the ducker is going to be more useful on like a vocal, which we'll have a look at in a minute. But let's just take a look at this saturation and the high and low pass. So the filters, you can go pre-EQ or post-EQ. So if you go pre-EQ, then the frequencies that you filter out never meet the reverb in the first place. If you go post, then it just takes them out afterwards. Let's see if we can kind of tune this a little bit. So let's go for some saturation. So the filters are utility. You're not necessarily getting like a specific sound out of them, but the saturation, that's got a real sound to it. So let's just crunch it all the way up for a moment and just hear it without and then with. Bit too much. Let's take it down a bit. Okay, nice. Now, the thing about a chamber in this instance in particular is you don't have like a time control because it's just the time taken to reverberate in that room. Now, that may be a good thing or that may be a bad thing. To me, it's good because I know that it's just a faithful representation of that room. And if I'm after something that I can really scale and really take the size down or whatever it is, then I'm maybe going to be looking elsewhere. But if I want something super realistic and something roomy, something chambery, something that just sounds like a drum kit recorded in a big, really good room, better than the one I've recorded in, this is going to be my go-to. We've also got an EQ here, which is going to EQ the reverb itself. It's not EQing into the reverb, it's EQing the actual sound of the reverb. So we can get a little bit more brilliance out of it. Let's just turn these filters off because I'm going to be kind of counteracting those. On C24, which I found is kind of the brightest setting, direct is the brightest, and ceiling is the brightest as well. So let's make it even brighter. Okay, so the low end is very low endy. It feels like these filters are quite harsh, quite aggressive. I don't mean harsh in a derogatory way. I mean they're quite specific. So they're not like really broad boosts and really broad cuts. They're kind of quite narrow. At least that's what it sounded like. I might be wrong. But brightening that right up really gives you so much of that reverb, and that's cool. Like if you're just trying to get it to bite through a little bit more, that can sound nice. So handy to have the EQ section in there for sure. Let's take a look at this compressor because I like to compress reverbs. It's kind of my thing. It's fun. But we've got a ducker in there as well. So let's see how the compressor reacts. Let's just listen to just the drums with the reverb. Okay, cool. So it's kind of clamping down the tails a little bit, and just gently doing that to them, whatever that hand symbol is. It's just kind of crushing down, I guess is the word for it. It's not being like too gentle, it's being quite aggressive, and we don't have like a specific makeup gain for this, so the level does change somewhat, so it's hard to make a completely fair comparison. But what it's actually doing, it's kind of doing well. It's dirtying up. I would say this compressor is a dirty compressor. And then we've got the ducker as well, which I'm going to have to just shoot over to a vocal session to really get the most out of. Here we are in said vocal session. So this is quite an intimate vocal, so I'd just like to hear how this sounds with the chamber in there. I'm just going to bring it in and just get a little feel for it. So previously I had Verb Suite on there. What was I using on Verb Suite? A Hall. Okay, pretty similar. So we're not necessarily going to compare the two, but I just want to see how it sounds, because the ducker, if you don't know, a ducker is going to bring the reverb down when the vocal is present, and then in the sections where there's no vocal, it's going to bring that reverb up. So it kind of just gets out of the way, which is handy. Let's just tune in a sound and see what we can do. So we'll leave the ducker off for the moment, and then we'll bring it in once we've got a sound. So here it is on vocals.
Dark clouds rain upon the sea, flashing wars calling to me, bewilderment leaves nothing kind or fair anywhere. Enough is enough, it's too much pain, too much sorrow, too much shame. And what has war ever gained?
Okay, cool. Let's bring in that ducker then and see what we're doing. So this is going to bring it down on the sections with vocal and then bring the reverb up when the vocal isn't there. So it just kind of whooshes in and gets out the way of the vocal.
Dark clouds rain upon the sea, flashing wars calling to me, bewilderment leaves nothing kind or fair anywhere. Enough is enough.
It's definitely doing that. I think when you get to the more extreme settings, it's doing it a considerable amount. But we're on vocals, so let's see what the mid-rangey kind of PA sounds like. It might be a bit aggressive. Let's find out.
Dark clouds rain upon the sea, flashing wars calling to me, bewilderment leaves nothing kind or fair anywhere. Enough is enough, it's too much pain, too much sorrow, too much shame. And what has war ever gained? Dark clouds rain upon the sea, flashing wars calling to me, bewilderment leaves nothing kind or fair anywhere. Enough is enough, it's too much pain.
It's natural. It's got a natural kind of vibe to it, which I think it works. It's very much a realistic reverb. It's very much something that if you want an extra sense of realism in there, this is going to give it to you. If you want those massive, long, cavernous tails, it's not that. It's not a kind of a shiny plate. It's not reverb in the sense of artificial reverb. It's reverb in the sense of make this source sound like it was recorded in a better room than it was. And for many people at home, that's exactly what you want from a reverb. Your room isn't perfect. Your recording room isn't fantastic, so you need to make it sound like it was. So you record it as dead as you can and then put it through something like this. It gets a thumbs up from me. I like it. It's one of the realest sounding reverbs I've heard in a very long time. And for a chamber reverb, I don't think there are many higher accolades. Give it a try. The link is down in the description below, and let me know what you think of it. Are there any other reverbs that you're using that are even more realer? Don't know why I said that. Let me know about it. I'll see you again soon. Take care.